Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network. For the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews, press 1. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Hello, and welcome to the very special edition of Anatomy of a Movie here on the Popcorn Talk Network. This is the Oscar nomination special, not to be confused with the Oscar special, which it's going to be on AfterBuzz TV.
We'll definitely do it. We'll have some various iterations of
various iterations of an Oscar special, and that will happen when the Oscars happen. But it's the day after the Oscar nominations, and we're here to talk about those. I'm your host, Steve Kaufmann. You can find me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann. That is Kaufmann. Tweet me your thoughts, your concerns, your feelings, your snubs, and I'm not alone.
There's going to be a lot of opinion here, and I'm excited, and we're doing it on Anatomy because now that you've seen the movie, we get to talk about the nominations for these movies, or the lack thereof.
And this is our first Oscar show, at least one that I've been a part of, so this is great.
We did one a while ago.
I don't recall.
2 years ago.
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
I promise you
You're asking me to remember 2 years ago? I don't remember what I had for dinner last night.
Phil, where can the people find you?
Here at Movie Anatomy.
There you go.
Twitter,
And hey,
Instagram.
movie fans, it's Demetri, and you can support me on Twitter at DMovies1701.
All right. We have a lot of categories, always finite on
definitely a lot.
time. Let's just jump right in from the bottom to the top. Best visual effects. I'm not saying all these categories are worthy, but we have to start at some bottom. Best visual effects, we got Ex Machinima, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Star Wars The Force Awakens.
I would say, in general, this category is very good. The Revenant jumps out as one of those, well, why is that? The fact that the bear is completely CGI, I think in and of itself puts it into this category. There's other ones that could fit in, but this is a really strong category in general. My pick, I think you give it to Star Wars. I think it deserves something. It didn't get much in the quote-unquote higher tiers, so give it visual effects.
I feel that way too. But I think all of these are amazing. I think Mad Max on pure, like every frame has a lot of just pure, and not a lot of CGI effects, like a lot of just practical effects that I thought that's very impressive. I could see them getting it, but they're probably going to go with Star Wars for the ratings, and like everyone's seen it, everyone's talking about it. Oscar voters tend to be on the older side, so they like to go with movies like Star Wars. Like, we're hip. I saw that. It was awesome.
Demetri.
Well, to me, it is a very interesting category. You had mentioned Mad Max and Star Wars. They're both similar in the fact that they each boasted going back to a more practical effect. J.J. Abrams, when he took the job for Star Wars, specifically said, I'm going to take Star Wars back to what it used to be back in the 70s. I'm going to use more practical effects. Yeah, and I loved Mad Max and what George Miller did with his team, and they actually created every single car and every single stunt. I'm not sure if that's a special effect, so to speak, more than maybe a production design. But personally, I go for Star Wars, The Force Awakens, because I really do think the blending of practical with CG and going back to that old school, using models, having a BB-8 that actually is mechanical and works. I think it's earned. I think it's very much earned. I am sort of surprised, however, that you talk about The Revenant, and I agree with you, Phil. I think Revenant is weird. I mean, there's some great shots, like when he jumps with the horse in the tree. But I don't know how The Revenant takes over for other movies like, say, Jurassic World. Jurassic World had that great sphere thing, and they had some really decent special effects as well, and Colin Trevorrow also used a little bit of practical effects. It was just sort of kind of weird that they shy away from like a Jurassic World or even an Avengers kind of a movie. and Revenant gets in there.
But I feel like Star Wars fills that gap.
Sort of, but again, if you are talking visual effects, it should be about the best. You're going up against the cream of the crop, and there are some other heavy laden special effects movies that look great.
Historically, this award went to Independence Day, which, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't get nominated for anything else in its year.
Yeah, and I was very happy to see Ex Machina on there as well, because a lot was said about the subtlety of the special effects, but what it took to make Alicia Vikander's whole look and with her translucency in the head. I mean, that it was an amazing special effect. I'm glad it got its notice, but again, Star Wars, I think.
Star Wars, and
so there's consensus there.
It's consensus at Star Wars. Also, The Revenant, as a lot of Best Picture nominees do, get to rack up a lot of other nominations along the way. This is one of them. Another one of them is Best Film Editing, which is Hank Corwin, Big Short, Margaret Sixel, Mad Max Fury Road, Stephen Morone, The Revenant, Tim McCarty, Spotlight, and then Star Wars The Force Awakens, which is Marianne Brandon and Mary Jo Markey. For editing.
This is a tough category because it goes one of two ways. It's either you see and notice the editing, and you're like, oh, that's great editing, or it's seamless and it just tells a story, and therefore it's good editing because we're not talking about it. And so I think with all of the, like, Spotlight falls into that category. It's seamless in a way but The Big Short, it's anything but seamless. You know, they very specifically made it like, we're not going to make a scene from A to B. We're just going to go A to whichever letter we want to go to.
Where it's intentionally abrupt but not jarring.
Yeah.
Which, as an editor, would be the hardest.
And then you have a movie like The Revenant, which I can't say it has 5 cuts in it, but
it's a pretty straight through. It has a couple long takes. But
and I'm willing to bet that those shots, like, again, the horse and the tree, I'm sure there were edits there that were just seamless, and it was what he did with Birdman. So and he didn't make another movie like that, but he incorporated a very similar, not same technique, in which we know there were cuts in Birdman, and Revenant, I'm sure, had similar cuts as well.
For me, I'd give this one to Mad Max because that is just that whole thing is an orchestra of various things, of sound and all that. And to make it work, you have to have the timing visually, which comes down to editing. And so I think that's, to me, I would go with Mad Max on this one.
I think Mad Max or The Big Short were the best edited films in this category, but I know historically the Oscars they'll probably go with The Revenant or Spotlight. Whatever might win Best Picture will likely be a front runner for Best Editing.
It's always a good bet that whichever picture wins Best Editing usually ends up being like Best Picture. I mean, it's a trend. Doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. I personally too. Yes, I get Mad Max Fury Road and what George Miller did with his crew in orchestrating the chase, the race. The chase and the race, is fantastic, and how it was all put together. I can't take away from what Abrams and company did with Star Wars. I mean, how that movie was edited, pieced together, and again, it was a throwback. Yeah. But he made it work, and when you couple it in from changing scenes and his wipes, but the action sequences, the flying sequences alone, in which you were able to, what's great about it is there was never any confusion. You knew whether it was a color coded from Poe Dameron's X-wing in the final battle, you always had an idea of where you were, and where so many things were going on at the same time. I think that says a lot too. Yeah. But again, I do think that something like a Mad Max, when you're orchestrating all those cars and those chases, and then you got to put in some visual effects and cut to close up or go to long shot, I agree. I think Mad Max deserves it. But for me, it's a very close second with Star Wars.
Big Short is my pick, and then Mad Max. But I think historically it's going to be Revenant or Spotlight, because those are the Also, when it comes to best film editing, like the best film editing this year is on a movie that wouldn't be nominated for an Academy Award. Like it's one of those like of what we've seen and of what we already liked. Because usually a terrible film that was okay that's probably the best editing of the year.
Sure.
But no one's going to award that.
No, no. But to your point, though, about Spotlight had an amazing sense of editing because the editing led to a suspense. It led to being it made it made doing a research paper or researching fascinating and interesting, where for all intents and purposes it should have been extremely boring watching people research things, but it was due to editing that really gave the pacing to that movie and led to a tense and it was engaging. Spotlight. So
got it. I'm gonna go with Spotlight.
You're changing, huh?
Well, I was wishy-washy. I'm gonna Spotlight for sure.
Okay.
Let's go to best costume design. We've got Carol, Cinderella, Danish Girl, Mad Max Fury Road, The Revenant. I'm just gonna say Mad Max on this.
Hell no.
Really?
Hell no. It's got to go to Cinderella. I mean, please. Here's the thing: this Cinderella's not nominated for many things. Not even production design. This movie deserves it. And the fact, yes, it came out a really long time ago. It came out in the winter time of 2015. Yeah. But the way they did it is just fantastic. And for costume design, they really went all out. I think it deserves that much, since it didn't get many other things.
Well, I'm going to say, Phil, were you part of our anatomy of a movie when we broke down Cinderella? Because I believe we had an amazing consensus, and I remember saying myself that at the time watching Cinderella, I felt, you know what, this is a great piece of great quality entertainment. At the very least, we've got the rest of the year to go. So there are many more movies to watch, but at the very least, costuming, it needs to be nominated. I agree. I think it should get costuming. In researching the movie, her dress alone, what went into making that, and then the ballroom scene specifically, how they dressed and costumed everybody else in all these colors, but had to make sure that Cinderella had stood out and didn't get lost in that Technicolor ball. I think that was amazing, and for the very least, Cinderella should get costuming. I agree with that.
And then next year, Cinderella Fury Road. Shoe in for best costume design.
Yeah.
All right, I say Mad Max. You guys say Cinderella. Best makeup and hairstyling. All right, we have 3 candidates here. Obviously, The Revenant. Obviously, Mad Max Fury Road. And then a movie that was not on my radar, The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out a Window and Disappeared, which I'm imagining is about a 100-year-old man who climbed out a window and disappeared. I haven't seen the film.
This category for me is one of the categories. This is a pure example of what is wrong with Academy Award voting. To only have 3.
Yeah.
To only have 3 nominations and to have a movie in which I'm willing to bet 99% of America doesn't even know what this is. This movie is all about. And to not have a movie like Star Wars in there, as far as costuming and hair makeup and hair, or best makeup and hairstyling, or picking like an Ex Machina, or there's so many there are so many movies,
or even a movie that's not traditionally an Oscar movie but was makeup heavy, like a horror movie that this category always frustrates me too.
It does not make sense, but given what we have, I would have to go with Mad Max Fury Road, just looking at what they did with Furiosa and all the other characters and the makeup involved. Each character was distinguishable from the other character. Like, you could tell who they were just by the various way that the makeup was applied and whatever their hairstyle could have been. And there was a lot to absorb in Mad Max Fury Road, that being one of them. And out of those categories, that's what I would go with.
Yeah, I mean, Revenant, I haven't seen The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared either. The Revenant, to me, was very well done, but at the end of the day, it's only a few people, whereas like Mad Max is a symphony. It's an orchestra, and so it took a lot to do that. So I think it trumps it in that regard.
I think Mad Max wins this as well, but historically they like to... The best picture...
I mean, this is another category for Cinderella.
Yeah,
right.
It really is.
No,
Makeup and hair.
But again, I don't understand Danish Girl.
That
like
too.
makeup and hair. Like that is all makeup and hair. And doing this, it's like, how do you pick a movie that, again, no offense to the 100-year-old man who climbed out a window and disappeared, and no offense at all, but at least throw in 2 other movies, at the very least, like Cinderella, like Danish Girl. Because
for a year and for the biggest award show
Right.
to not nominate a full 5 in any category
it's a sham.
is to say, oh,
It's not important.
the business isn't doing as well as in this category as other categories.
Carol could have been nominated. I mean, there are other movies that could have been nominated, and to only say 3, it really says, we don't care about best makeup.
I mean, shoot, put in Z for Zachariah only because you have like 3 of the most like iconic people in cinema. One of which is like basically now a sex symbol through Margot Robbie, and she looks plain Jane. Like that in itself must have taken skill.
My only argument is that it wasn't theatrical about that.
Yeah.
But there are
I
we
saw it
have
in theater.
theatricals. It was
Nah, fair enough.
I'm just saying. But to your point though, there is plenty out there that could have made this category, including whether it's. Whether I don't care whether it's Tomorrowland or whether it's there are a ton of movies out there.
Jurassic World, I'm sure.
Yeah, that were deserving of best makeup and hairstyling. You could have thrown in 2 other films.
It just makes this feel like a throwaway category.
Yeah.
Like this category
Literally.
doesn't mean much, so we don't care about.
Which, if that's your profession, must feel great.
Of course. Like, and again, how does Cinderella not get nominated for this? How, like, the creating of her makeup from rags to riches, let's say. It's stunning. She was stunning in that dress and the
They
way
all were. They
they
all
really
down to
were.
that.
Absolutely.
We're moving on from the throwaway categories. Best cinematography. We've got Ed Lockman for Carol, Robert Richardson for The Hateful Eight, John Seal for Mad Max Fury Road, Emmanuel Lubezki for The Revenant, and then Roger Deakins for Sicario.
Sicario.
The Revenant? I would say The Revenant.
I mean,
They're all great.
The Revenant, like, here you have to. There's 2 points. You either judge it by what you see, or you like go off of the process. And if you go off of just the process in itself, The Hateful Eight, the fact that it was 70 millimeter, they restored. They literally got cameras to be from Ben-Hur to be able to do this, and then Revenant, the fact that they only shot South by Southwest lighting, stuff like that. So if you look at the actual process of making film, then I think it's a toss-up between those 2. I would give it to The Revenant has better footage, but again, the process of Hateful Eight restoring these cameras.
Hollywood loves Hollywood.
I think that in itself is great. I would give it to Hateful Eight.
Yeah, I think this is a tough one because for those who pay attention to anatomy of a movie, we always talk about cinematography. Somebody that I've talked about a lot is Roger Deakins, and this is a guy whose body of work is just phenomenal. The way that he works with light and dark and shadow, and he made, in my opinion, probably the best shot, most beautiful Bond movie in Skyfall. But he's worked with the Coen brothers, and he gets nominated a lot. He's like Susan Lucci of cinematography. He gets nominated, and sadly, he doesn't. He needs a special Lifetime Achievement Award for sure, because I think, again, this is going to be another year where he's going to get
lost in the shuffle.
And it's too bad. Sicario is a beautiful film to look at as well, but I think it's going to end up going to Revenant because of its beautiful cinematography. I get, Hateful Eight restoring those cameras 70 millimeter.
Yeah.
The problem is, I wished that they were able to keep the 70 millimeter prints afloat longer to give people the opportunity to do it. Now, those techie people are going to get it, and they'll more than likely vote, but I think Revenant, too, as a Western, is beautifully shot film. From its trees to its mountains to its glaciers to the scene where the meteorites are falling from the sky, and it was just beautifully shot cinematography wise. I think they're going to give it to Revenant, at least right now. The other thing I think we should say is this is the day after. Yeah. This is a very knee-jerk reaction. You already changed your mind within
a little bit on a couple stuff.
And I think with discussion, I could change my mind too. But my knee-jerk right now is I think they'll go Revenant. Yeah.
But I think Revenant as well.
Yeah.
And similarly, like a Best Picture nominee that also racks up like a dozen other nominations tends to win a lot of those nominations.
Agreed.
Yeah, I loved Hateful Eight. I love the cinematography of Hateful Eight. The nerdy cinephile in me loved that it was actually shot in 70 millimeter and actually projected in 70 millimeter, and they spent $80,000 per cinema for that road show.
Yeah,
that was incredible. But that's not in the frame. Yeah. The Revenant. Best production design. We were talking about this earlier. Bridge of Spies, The Danish Girl, Mad Max: Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant. I'm just gonna say Mad Max. Because we were.
I think Mad Max definitely deserving. British Spies, I think that it's a little bit. It's on a couple of the higher ones, quote unquote. I think that could be worthy. I mean, these are all pretty worthy in their own right. Again, I just think Cinderella did get snubbed. I really do.
I'm not gonna.
I think the makeup, the costume, and the production, like across the board, Cinderella was really deserving.
So you're saying I need to watch Cinderella? That's what you're saying.
The fact that they brought a fairy tale to actual life.
It made it work. It made it work very well. Like I was very skeptical going in. But to your point, yes, and listen, you can check Anatomy of a Movie. We did a great breakdown of the movie, and we did talk about all of this great stuff, and that how later on in the year that it shouldn't be forgotten. But it's, for me, the wild card of this one is Bridge of Spies.
Yes,
I like it. Look, it's a solid movie, but we sort of seen that throwback '60s kind of feel, and not that they didn't do it; they did a fantastic job. But again, it could have gone to maybe another movie like a Cinderella. I agree with you where you said Mad Max: Fury Road.
Yeah,
designing the cars. Personally, I'm gonna go. The look and feel of The Martian and getting NASA's help on board to make things look real. I think they took a lot of time and detail. So right now, I got to throw the support towards The Martian. But what did you go with?
I'm going to go with The Martian. To me, it's a toss-up, honestly, between Bridge of Spies. Because Tom Hanks, I don't think it's getting the recognition that it fully deserves.
Well, I think it is now. Because this was kind of a wild card.
It is now.
It was very early. Like the movie came out relatively early, right, in comparison to most of these other ones. But I think ultimately the fact that The Martian is, it took a Golden Globe home, yes, for Best Comedy. I understand this. So I think The Martian's got a little bit hotter of a hand, so I would give it to The Martian just because that's how I feel they're going to go.
I'm sticking with Mad Max. Okay. I think because that's in the frame. Like, you can recognize the amount of work that took. I'm going to knock these out together. Best sound editing, best sound mixing. Best sound editing, Mad Max, Martian, Revenant, Sicario. I don't know why I keep wanting to say Cicero. Star Wars Force Awakens, best sound mixing, Bridge of Spies, Mad Max, Martian, Revenant, Star Wars Force Awakens.
For me, it's pretty easy. I say Star Wars The Force Awakens again.
On both?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, again, JJ going back to old school, this is the Ben Burtt schooling of sound and what he was able to accomplish, and mixing everything from, again, people don't understand, and us geeks are able to figure the sound of an X-Wing's blasters as opposed to a TIE fighter's, and the sound effects of the Millennium Falcon taking off. These are all so memorable that when they happen on screen, when you see the movie for the first time, it's just, for me, it was just pure joy. And I loved how that movie was put together, and then making up the sounds for BB-8 again too. Yeah, so sound editing, sound mixing, I'm going to go back. I'm going to use Star Wars Force Awakens for both of those.
Yeah, I think overall a pretty fair category.
Yeah.
And I do think Star Wars deserves it. You know, the only Jurassic World, I think, you know, could have been in this category for all the dinosaurs that had created, and you know, they really took it to the level with, you know, I mean, if you didn't believe the Raptors with Chris Pratt, it would have obviously worked, and the fact that it did, I think sound design helped it. But in terms of what we got, Star Wars.
Yeah, I can't deny Star Wars this. I've been trying. I've been looking at everything. I'm like, no, I think Star Wars will definitely win that. So we'll move on. Both of those categories. We're going to do Best Original Song first, which has earned it from 50 Shades of Grey, which is music and lyrics by Belly, Stephen Misha, Manta Ray from Racing Extinction, Simple Song number 3 from Youth, Till It Happens to You from The Hunting Ground, which is a Lady Gaga song, and then Writings on the Wall from Spectre. I
haven't heard all of these, but I
neither.
think Writings on the Wall, Spectre, what Sam Smith does with his voice, because it, much like The Revenant, when you watch those action scenes and you think, oh, okay, it's over, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, the fact that his testicles shrink into himself, and he goes higher and higher and keeps going and going, like
for a man to sing a Bond song, you're already like, wow.
in the way that he does, like
Yeah.
this is hands down Writings on the Wall for me.
Yeah, you know, Writing on the Wall it's an interesting thing. I too go for Writing on the Wall, although this is another example of a snubbing because from Furious 7, the song that was dedicated to Paul Walker, which got a ton
true.
of radio play, didn't get nominated. And I think had it been nominated, I think that would have been a lock.
Yes.
That would have been a lock. And when you look at Writings on the Wall, when that song first came out, a lot of the Bond fans were really like, meh, really? Bleh. And I even said it in our Spectre podcast, I feel the song works better in the movie with the graphics. I think it works. Then I was like, okay, I can listen to it. It plays better. I think of all of these, I do think that Writing on the Wall is going to, should get it. But how do you not have that song Furious 7?
Speaking of throwaway categories, and it wasn't too long ago when this category was like Man or Muppet and like two other songs. So it's good that they have 5 songs.
Yeah, no, they have 5 songs, but this is a category that gave it to Insane Clown Posse one year. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Nominated Insane Clown Posse?
They won.
I'm gonna have to Google that later. I'm unaware of that.
Yep.
So that was the rap band one, right?
Yeah.
That was 3-6 Mafia.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
3-6 Mafia.
Sorry,
Okay, 3-6 Mafia. Yeah,
I was a juggalo as a child. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't.
Pretty
sure I wouldn't have missed
Mafia, Insane Clown Posse. Where are they now? That's what it. But so
Counting their
it was
money.
the 3-6 Mafia,
Okay.
and like so, this it's interesting because I think it's a great category because sometimes it can give people like Bruce Springsteen and stuff a shot at Hollywood. Where their songs can get nominated. So I always love this category to see is there a pop star and
because like Lady Gaga's nominated,
right? Yeah,
and like has she won an Emmy? Did she win an Emmy for?
She got a Golden Globe,
but I'm
not
thinking
sure if she got an Emmy. I'm not sure.
But American Horror Story, what she did in American Horror Story might be next year, so she might be like not only EGOT but EGOTing real quick.
Yeah, and then Happy.
Yeah.
A lot of people like this category, especially if it's a popular pop song.
Yeah.
That makes it so.
And Best Original Score goes hand in hand with that. We have Thomas Newman doing Bridge of Spies, Carter Burwell doing Carol, Ennio Morricone, right?
Yes.
Ennio Morricone doing The Hateful Eight, Johannesson. There are a lot of apostrophes on the O's. Johansson.
Yeah.
For
Johansson for
Sicario, and then John Williams for Star Wars The Force Awakens. I want Hateful Eight, but it'll probably be John Williams.
I think for me it would be Hateful Eight. Like, obviously Star Wars, what John Williams did, like he did the original score of the original movie, and so now he's building upon that. But there's that whole lore and history. Hateful Eight to me. But again, then Hateful Eight, they recycled stuff from another movie.
Yeah.
What was it? I'm trying to think. I'm blanking on it because we did it. There was like literally 3 songs that couldn't be used in one of the movies that Ennio was doing.
Yes. And then, I don't remember any of the. I remember the story. I don't remember the details.
Listen to the anatomy of the movie. We go into depth about it, and so they recycled those for Hateful Eight. So do you call that original score? I think Force Awakens gets it.
Yeah, I think Force Awakens gets it for a couple of reasons. Not sure how much more John Williams is going to be composing. He came out of retirement to do this. He wanted to do this. I think it's a beautiful soundtrack, and what John Williams has always done. And if you recall, the original Star Wars album had these wonderful liner notes in it. But one thing that I learned as a kid about scoring and soundtracks and made me appreciate them more is like John Williams does themes. So in this one, Ray's theme, Ray the Scavenger, it's a beautiful theme, really connects to that character, and it's throughout the entire score. I really loved what he did. And again, I don't know how much longer he's going to composing. This may be this could be a last hurrah. What's very fascinating is that we have Bridge of Spies by Thomas Newman in here. Bridge of Spies, directed by Steven Spielberg. Williams has always been his go-to man, and my guess is, and I don't know for sure, but he may have been working on Star Wars. He might not have been able to work on this, and but it's very fascinating that Thomas Newman is getting nominated in a category that for a director who always uses Williams in about 98% of his movies. So, but I think a lot has been being said about Ennio Morricone. You can't take away from his body of work. Guy's been around forever doing this, and he's done westerns. He did The Thing for John Carpenter. So.
That was the movie that the scores were from.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Essentially, because sometimes you win an Academy Award for your career, not necessarily the movie you just did. And I think both Williams and Morricone fall under that category. I'm going to go with Morricone.
Yeah.
And then I'm also not looking at betting odds like I normally do when I predict these things.
Right.
So I might be dead wrong on that. Best live action short film, best animated short film. I have a confession to make. I haven't seen any of these yet. I do have a month. I do have a month before the actual Academy, but
maybe we should move on to best animated.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know the shorts and documentaries.
Yeah, right.
They go over my head. So no offense to them.
No offense. Best documentary feature. Are we
over my head too?
I would say we should go right into animation.
Yeah,
I think.
Let me know when you're ready, because
Best animated, yes. Best animated feature film is Animalicia, with its Charlie Kaufman, Duke Johnson, Rosa Tran, Boy in the World, Inside Out, Shaun the Sheep movie, and When Marnie Was There.
I've seen most of these. The fact that the Peanuts isn't on here is a little upsetting.
That's
snubby.
I thought that was really, really well done. We on our anatomy we talked a lot about the process to get there. I mean, this was a movie that was not going to be made, and it was, and they did make it, and the care they put into that movie, I think it deserves there. Obviously, Inside Out is a fantastic movie for kids and adults alike. I do like Shaun the Sheep. I think it's a fun movie. Not gonna win. It'll be interesting to see if Animalicia does anything. I did see the movie. I think it's a good movie. It's interesting. I don't. It almost looks like a live action movie.
Yeah.
But not quite. And I don't think it ever will or would have worked if it was live action. That's the interesting part. I think it's a toss-up between Inside Out and Animalicia because one's very commercial, but good commercial. One's very heady.
That's what I have it down to. I'm going to say Inside Out only because when I made a list in December, like I always do, Inside Out was on that list for Best Picture. Like, it was that good that if a movie's that good but it's only Best Animated, it can't not win Best Animated.
Yeah, I the movie did get nominated for Best Original Screenplay as well. I have to give it to Inside Out for sure. Again, this is another one of those categories where the one that befuddled me, not because it was a bad movie at all, is Shaun the Sheep. And here's my, and I'd like to believe the legitimate reasons, and why Peanuts is not there is really a travesty, and why I think Shaun the Sheep shouldn't be there is not because it's not a good movie. It's a fun movie. I love those guys, Wallace and Gromit, Chicken Run. They make quality things, and they have a Pixar sensibility of story is the art, and I love this. But here's my spiel. The movie came out in the UK in February of this past year of 2015, I believe. And somebody can double check my dates. It was released on home entertainment, Blu-ray, DVD, and I think like June or July. The movie was showcased on airlines, okay?
Yep.
These are all factors that went into the low gross that Shaun the Sheep got. I mean, this was a movie that had already opened up foreignly, that was already being watched on airplanes before it ever came theatrical here in the United States. At that point, it's like, why are you bothering? Like, at that point, just release it, home video. Shaun the Sheep is a series. It's a popular series. I think the States were a little bit late in the game in getting this movie. It had already had its run, in a sense.
Yeah.
And to me, you can't really... it got a full theatrical release, which I'm all for, but you have to look into those other factors. And then when you have a movie that's as strong as Peanuts, how do you vote? How does that not get in over a movie like Shaun the Sheep?
I think Shaun the Sheep is a fun movie. Peanuts it has a lot of heart. And like, in terms of passing on anything to the youth of America, I think, like,
I don't know.
What I mean, it's
Oscar voters must be on airplanes.
They
and
must
see
be.
Shaun the Sheep, whereas Peanuts was in theaters starting in November.
Yeah,
So
just,
that
Peanuts
shouldn't
did
be a
far
problem.
More.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be an issue. In Peanuts, we talked about it at great length, and we were all such wonderful fans. Another wonderful throwback to nostalgia, but where adults and kids can like it. It had the humor. It had it all. I don't understand. Like, it should have been given some love. Yeah. And again,
Should have had Shaun the Sheep spot.
It should have. I think so.
Yeah.
And not for any other reason. Shaun the Sheep is a fun movie. I love those guys. I just think we should have gone with Peanuts.
Well, if we're going with snubs, let's get into Best Adapted Screenplay.
Okay.
Because I think that's one of the bigger snubs this nomination season. Nominated is The Big Short, Brooklyn, Carol, The Martian, and Room. These are all Best Adapted Screenplays. They're adapted from other stuff.
Right.
What's missing is Aaron Sorkin and Steve Jobs, which I'm sure was based on one, if not many, books. And he won the Golden Globe for it last Sunday. Not even on this list.
Yeah, look, you're not going to get an argument from me.
like,
we were talking about this. I think it's I don't get it. I think they are so all over the place with this nominating process and voting that had Steve Jobs done better at the box office, Aaron Sorkin most surely would have been nominated. But you can't use that logic
that
on some
shouldn't-
other movie. But there are other movies that nominal, like, that people were getting nominated for being in these movies. Like we said, like the 100-Year-Old Man.
Yeah.
How does a movie like that get nominated if people don't know what it is?
Yeah, if people aren't watching Steve Jobs, how are they like?
And Sorkin has a cachet. I agree with you 100% on that snub. Who do you think should go?
I agree with that. Who I think should go? I mean, the problem is I have not read the original material for any of these.
Same here.
So it's tough to say. I mean, so I think The Big Short for me, takes it out of these things, because the fact that they took basically a mindless finance book and created this, I think is genius. You could make an argument that The Revenant he could have been nominated but wasn't. But I do agree. I think I think something like Carol perhaps could have, or Brooklyn for me, could have gone away in lieu of Steve Jobs and Sorkin.
Yeah, or even the one book that I did read out of this is The Martian. They did a very good job. There were some things, obviously there were going to be some changes from page to screen, from book to screen. But again, I have to go with you in The Big Short. I haven't read The Big Short. When we did the panel for The Big Short, we had a panelist who had actually read the book. And she'd gone on, I don't think it's a book that I would have understood. Yeah. And I think by taking that book, and then what Adam McKay did with Charles Randolph in making it understandable, entertaining, and engaging, that a simpleton like myself can walk out going, okay, yeah, I got it.
What Michael Lewis, the author of The Big Short, also the author of Moneyball, is very good at doing. Yeah. So Adam McKay just took that and moved forward with it. I think The Big Short too.
Yeah, I think The Big Short.
Best original screenplay. So this is a screenplay that they, for all intents and purposes, made up.
I think
without a book. We got Bridge of Spies, which is Matt Charman, Ethan and Joel Cohen, Ex Machinima, Inside Out, Spotlight, Straight Outta Compton.
I think I would give it to Straight Outta Compton. I think it deserves more than it got this, and so I think just give it to the screenplay, at least just as a token of appreciation.
I think Inside Out. I think, and what I didn't mention about Inside Out is that if you take 2015's box office and then eliminate any movie that's adapted, Inside Out is by far the top grossing film of the year. Top grossing original film of the year. Then that list is really dicey, but under Inside Out. But I think for that...
But Straight Outta Compton's pretty close.
Straight Outta Compton's there. I'm going to say Inside Out. I think everything on this list is great. Spotlight... Although Spotlight and Straight Outta Compton, although aren't based on books, they're based on true events and get in a gray area between adapted and original. But I'm sticking with Inside Out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very interesting. I'm sticking with, I love Inside Out, and I love the fact that they gave it the recognition. But ever since they made that Best Animated category, which again, I think takes away from that there's no reason why a movie like Inside Out can't be a Best Picture nomination. There's no reason whatsoever why that shouldn't happen, other than the fact of, we made up their own category, Best Animated category.
We found a place to put them.
Found a place to put them so they can get the recognition. I think because of that, it may not get recognition for screenplay because it has its Best Animated category. But I thought what they did, I'm going to go with Spotlight, because what they did in Spotlight, again, making a procedural such as research, making it fascinating. I also have to give props to, and I was very happy to see it here, Alex Garland for Ex Machina.
Yes.
I think, if not the best science fiction movie of the year, what he accomplished with that movie and the mere fact that he got nominated, for me, it's a very close second. People shouldn't forget that movie left people talking at the end, and there were so many themes and philosophies and what's going on in this movie. How did it end for you? What did you take away from it? I really think that for me, Ex Machina is a very, very close second, but I would right now say Spotlight.
I'm sticking with Inside Out. Best Supporting Actress, we have Jennifer Jason Leigh for Hateful Eight, Rooney Mara for Carol, Rachel McAdams for Spotlight, Alicia Vikander for Danish Girl, Kate Winslet for Steve Jobs.
This is a tough one. There's a lot of good ones there.
They're all great. Yeah. I think the Globes will be the decider. It's going to be Kate Winslet, and it'll be the only recognition Steve Jobs gets for the night.
Interesting. Yeah. It's tough. Rooney Mara's kind of been here before, but for me, I think deserving is Jennifer Jason Leigh because her character is so hateful.
Yeah.
And the amount of abuse that she takes during this and the way she portrays, like, yeah, just keep giving me that abuse because I don't ultimately care. I think it's fun, but you know, that's not to say they all did a fantastic
and
job.
and also especially up top on the top tiers we are. You don't always get the award for the movie you were in. Like, Rachel McAdams might get the award for being Rachel McAdams and being awesome and being a great actress, but her actual performance in Spotlight, not as good as it was, wasn't award-worthy by any stretch. It was...
She was the surprise for me, and again, for the same exact reasons. I think she can be a really, really good actress, and I think, you know, she defaults. She's probably... She's one of the only women in a movie that's basically men. She stands out a lot in Spotlight, and I think she does do a good job. But for the same reasons, I agree with what you were saying.
Speaking of, we all got a
no. Well, okay. I would go. You know, for me, it's interesting. We just last week we did talk about the Danish Girl, and I said, you know, make no mistake that the Danish Girl. That's Alicia Vikander's movie. It's her movie. And she is amazing in it. And I can't wait to see her in more things. I was surprised she didn't get nominated for Ex Machina. She was wonderful in that. With all that said, you know, when you look at Kate Winslet's performance too in Steve Jobs, she disappears in that role.
Yeah.
Like,
because she's an American... Is Kate Winslet's not American?
No, she's not American.
But like, she's not Eastern European.
She disappears in that role, and it took me a little bit to. Oh my God! And she is such a linchpin in that movie that if that actress, again, like Alicia Vikander, if they did not work in performance, the movies would have fallen apart. And I thought that Kate Winslet was fantastic, and I agree. I think it'll be the only love that Steve Jobs get. But it's a tough category. It's a good category.
Speaking of a great category, but also receiving an Oscar for things you've already done, Best Supporting Actor: Christian Bale in The Big Short, Tom Hardy in Revenant, Mark Ruffalo in Spotlight, Mark Rylance, Bridge of Spies, and Sylvester Stallone in Creed. But really, Rocky won.
I think,
really, just they're giving themselves another chance to nominate Rocky Balboa.
Here's the thing: it's tough. Like, what Stallone does, I don't think he's better than these people on a pound for pound basis. But what Stallone is in Stallone world, this is the best performance he's done. Almost, since Rocky 1.
Yeah. Well, everybody again. I took a lot of shit for not thinking Creed was a great movie but a good movie. But I also gave props if people paid attention to Sylvester Stallone. And I say revisit Copland.
Yeah.
Like Copland, he puts in a performance that makes you go, holy shit. Like, yeah, this is a really good movie. And he, like... For Creed, they're giving it... I think it's a good performance for him.
Yes.
And it's definitely not Escape Plan or Expendables 3 performance. This is a solid performance for him. But I think it was out of love of his body for work. And he's loved.
And
he's
on
beloved.
a performance, if you're playing someone who goes through chemotherapy, you shave your head. You don't put on a hat.
Yeah.
Like, on pure performance, if we're judging him purely as Rocky Balboa in Creed, he shouldn't even be nominated.
But
he's... Are we in agreement that he's going to win?
I think he'll
for win. Rocky Balboa as a character.
I think he'll win.
And for being Sylvester Stallone.
I'm in disagreement with that. Yeah, I'm gonna say that. Listen, I think Mark Ruffalo's performance in Spotlight deserves the win. I mean, again, maybe I'm going from my heart.
Yeah.
Maybe the odds makers and everybody says Stallone's gonna do it, but when you look at those two performances. Ruffalo's performance in Spotlight is amazing. I mean, he was great in that movie. And remember when we did Spotlight? What was really difficult is, and we brought this up in that conversation, is who gets who are they going to parse out to supporting and best actor and best supporting? Remember, because it's such an ensemble cast. Yeah. So
and what they did was they
went with Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, what they did was Mark Ruffalo supporting, and then. That's it. We have 4 more to go. We can do this. Best Actress: Cate Blanchett and Carol, Brie Larson in Room, Jennifer Lawrence in Joy, Charlotte Rampling in 45 Years, Cerise Ronan in Brooklyn.
And that's it.
I didn't like Joy. I didn't get a chance to tell anyone.
Here's the thing, like this is an interesting year because David O. Russell. This is the only year that in recent history he hasn't been nominated for multiple things, and neither just basically his party. So Jennifer Lawrence comes off one for the Golden Globes. I don't think, as good as she was, I don't think it's worthy of winning this.
Yeah, both Golden Globe winners for Best Actress are Brie Larson and Jennifer Lawrence are in this category.
I would give it to Brie Larson.
I would also give it to Brie Larson.
Demetri?
Yeah, this is a really, again, I think that, I don't know, I love Saoirse Ronan in Brooklyn. I think she put in an exquisite performance. But just, again, I love Charlotte Rampling. I do. And she has a tremendous body of work. Watch her in The Verdict. Go back and watch The Verdict. I mean, there are other roles she should have been nominated for other than this 45 years. Again, within this category, yeah, I mean, Brie Larson over Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence is good, but she's good in what ultimately is a mediocre movie.
Yeah.
It's not a very good movie.
She's playing Jennifer Lawrence in a David O. Russell movie.
Yeah.
Where it's like we've seen that a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, she's good, and it's interesting that at 25 she already has 4 nominations.
That's incredible.
Which is she's becoming it's almost like she's becoming like the Meryl Streep. Like if she shows up in any movie, we're just going to nominate her.
Yep.
So it's very, very interesting. But yeah, out of this category, I guess. Yeah, I mean, for Best Actress, Brie Larson was fantastic in The Room. She really is.
I think it's her year. Best Actor, Bryan Cranston, Trumbo, Matt Damon, Martian, Leonardo DiCaprio, Golden Globe winning Leonardo DiCaprio, Revenant, Michael Fassbender, Steve Jobs, Eddie Redmayne, The Danish Girl.
It's got to be Leonardo. It just has to.
Are we predicting the Oscars, or are we saying who's best in this category?
I'm predicting the Oscars because they have to just give it to him. They just have to.
I see Bryan Cranston being the spoiler here.
Yeah, again, he's the one that, again, I got nothing against Bryan Cranston. I don't understand. He's in a category. He gets nominated for a movie that's mediocre. Like, it's not I don't understand why he's there. Like, to be honest, he took that nomination, not he personally. He didn't do it. It took a spot from someone else who may have been more deserving. I got to go. I think it's Leonardo DiCaprio's year all the way.
Yeah.
I'm saying Bryan Cranston. Just history can't hurt us there.
You're hating on Leo.
I'm not hating on Leo. The Oscars are, and I'm standing by the Oscars. The Oscars, for whatever reason, don't want to give Leo an Oscar. They're not going to. They're not going to this year. Bryan Cranston, who turned in an excellent performance in an arguably mediocre film.
Here's the big question: does Best Director win also Best Picture?
I don't think.
I don't think so. I don't think that's. Right. I don't think since they went to 10 and now up to 10 like they do this year that Best Director is that indicator anymore.
So let's talk directing.
So Best Director, Lenny Abramson, The Room, Alejandro Inarritu, The Revenant, Tom McCarthy, Spotlight, Adam McKay, Big Short, George Miller, Mad Max, Fury Road, all of whom captained an incredible ship for each of their movies. I say Adam McKay.
I think I like Adam McKay, but I think just his body of work, they're gonna look weird upon it. I mean, he's comedy.
Yeah, but
he's
I think
Anchorman.
I feel like they're gonna. Right. I feel like they're gonna look more impressively on him because I think they're gonna judge him as. Wait, he did Anchorman, but Big Short is like nothing like Anchorman in the sense that it's just a serious, albeit funny movie.
I think it's between Alejandro and George Miller.
I could buy that too.
Well, I think again it's going to be a split, and again when we talk about snubbings, where's Ridley Scott? I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but we haven't gotten into like how miserable this voting is and how like this broken system. Again, The Room is a really good movie. I just I don't understand how that director gets in over Ridley Scott. I mean. If George Miller is in there, Ridley Scott should be there. I think it's definitely going to be one of those years where I think that Inarritu is going to get director and best film will be something else.
Which
So-
I think is also the problem with having more than 5 nominees for Best Picture, but
I
only
agree.
5 nominees for Director, because now there are 3 movies right now that their director's not nominated.
But in my thing, we got to stop. It's happened throughout all of history,
Yeah.
but this is one thing that needs to be changed. If your best picture, automatically you get in for best director, because a best picture does not happen without its director. Period.
Yep.
And it's got to go hand in hand.
Speaking of Best Picture, because we do have to move on, we have the illustrious 8. The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, Spotlight. All early betting before these nominations had Spotlight, The Revenant winning the Golden Globe, and then The Big Short even getting a nomination and getting all these nominations really put those up in front.
Here's what I will say. I think The Revenant will win, but just to name the fact that you named 8 out of 10, I think it's just a diss because there's so many other movies that like just could have been this, right?
Yeah.
It's worthy just to be nominated. So nominate them. That's
Yeah,
it.
because you
It's a
can nominate
stupid
up to
system.
10, so there's 2 more movies.
You just felt like, oh, they're not even. The other movies aren't even good enough. We're just gonna keep it till 8.
It's such
I just have that hate.
But you're going with The Revenant?
I am going with The Revenant.
And I I'm gonna go with, out of those, I'm gonna stick. I think it could potentially go to. I think you could go to Spotlight and or The Martian, because there could end up being that sympathy. It's almost like Argo. Ben Affleck didn't get nominated for Best Director. The movie won Best Picture that year. It was a good commercial success. It's a good feel-good movie. I think it has a shot, but right now I'm going to stay with Spotlight. And speaking of Spotlight, you can get the Spotlight team to research how they do Academy voting for the nominees, and they wouldn't be able to put it out in layman's terms. Adam McKay and company couldn't put this in terms that we, the schmucks, could understand in a way, because it's stupid.
It is.
And
For it to
line.
decide, for how much it decides, like being an Oscar winner.
Right.
Versus how broken the system is, I do want to see a movie like Spotlight just about Academy voting.
Yeah.
Which is funny, that would probably win a Best Picture. I'm gonna go with The Revenant. I think it's hard to beat at this point. It's commercial success. Because Steven and myself were saying, or Steven was saying that it would not be. Steven was saying that it would be. Phil and I were saying that it wouldn't be. I'm all confused. But it's a big commercial success. Everyone's watching it. I think it'll be that. It'll be The Revenant's night.
I think so too. I mean, the fact that it's nominated 12 times, I think has got to be some sort of indicator. So
it could be. It could be.
So, The Revenant is my pick.
The Revenant wins the night.
Then Spotlight for me.
Yeah.
Big Short. Gonna go.
Big Short's my sleeper pick. Big Short could sweep up a little bit.
I think it's too comedic and funny. And too eccentric. You know, I mean, you cut to Margot Robbie. I think just by the fact that Selena Gomez is in this movie, people are like, wait, Selena Gomez?
I have a friend.
It knocks it.
I watched it with a friend who was nominating for the SAG Awards and was like, oh, I'm going to nominate that for. They want to nominate that for Best Ensemble, but I can't because that would mean Selena Gomez could possibly win a SAG Award. And like that was her reasoning for not nominating The Big Short for Best Ensemble.
Well, my backup is going to be The Martian. It's got enough nominations.
It's got the Globe behind it.
Yeah, and Matt Damon was, so I think potentially that could be, because there's so much talk about Ridley not getting nominated for this.
Well, and it's funny for Ridley to win the Golden Globe for a comedy. A comedy.
I mean, he's
that
never
whole
directed
thing,
a comedy in his life.
I think that's the joke of The Martian. But thank you guys so much for joining us. I don't know all the details of the Oscar panel, but I'm sure we're going to do a lot of fun Oscar stuff here.
Stay tuned. The Popcorn Talk. We'll keep you updated.
So be sure to look for us at The Popcorn Talk. That's what they are on Twitter.
And Instagram, yeah.
Twitter and Instagram, they're The Popcorn Talk. Obviously, the YouTube channel, like, rate, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann. That is Kaufmann. I do a lot of shows in this very room and in this very studio, and I tweet about them regularly.
And check out other anatomies. All these movies that we talked about are there for you to fully discuss. So, if you're looking for that and you're like, wow, why didn't you talk about it? We did talk about it for 2 hours. Every single one of them.
They're there.
And we're going to continue. I think you'll be shortly seeing Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our analysis of that beautiful movie. So,
Yeah. And then, Demetri, where can the people find you?
Again, please support me on Twitter at DMovies1701. More than happy to talk about all the on how to fix the Oscars, and I'm more than happy to take the reins over that, Cheryl Boone Isaacs.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Go, Academy. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye, all.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.